I never thought a glass of Merlot at a quiet Seattle pub would be the moment I learned my only son wanted me dead. The bartender's grip on my wrist was like iron. His voice barely rose above a whisper, but it shattered me more than any scream could have. Your son is outside. He's paying men to make sure you don't live past tomorrow. I laughed at first, a dry, brittle sound that didn't reach my eyes. That's not funny. But Marvin, his name tag read Marvin, didn't smile. I don't joke about things like that, ma'am. Check the screen. He slid his phone toward me on the bar top. Security camera footage. Time stamped, clear as daylight. Michael, my Michael, handing an envelope to a man in a black windbreaker near the dumpster. Two others leaned in, nodded. Money changed hands. My mouth went dry. My pulse thundered in my ears. Marvin's voice cut through the noise like a scalpel. Don't go out the front. Wait until I tell you. There's a back exit through the kitchen. I was too stunned to ask questions. My son. The boy I'd raised on my own, who had cried when I broke my wrist in '98, hovered over me with popsicles and bedtime prayers. That boy was gone. In his place was a man who looked me in the eye over dinner and poured me wine while setting me up to be eliminated. I blinked, slow and careful, trying to hold the pieces of myself together. I couldn't fall apart. Not here. Not yet. I'm sorry, Marvin said, gentler now. But if you walk out that front door, you won't make it to your car. I've seen this before. Quiet setups. No loose ends. He reached under the bar and slid over a folded napkin. On it, a single word. Run. My throat clenched. The air smelled like beer and lemon sanitizer. I clutched my purse. My leather organizer was in there. Bank documents. My revised will. Everything. I nodded once. Calm. Collected. I believe you, I whispered. Because deep down, I already knew. I'd seen the way Michael's eyes had changed. The tight smile. The sudden interest in my estate. The rushed weekend visit. Something had been wrong. I just never thought it would end like this. 3 hours earlier, I'd stood in his driveway with my overnight bag, smiling like a fool. The trip from Spokane to Seattle had left my back throbbing, but I was happy. Michael had come out onto the porch when he saw my car. He walked like he always did, head high, casual, rehearsed. He gave me a hug, but there was no weight to it, just arms. No heart. Long drive, huh? He took the suitcase from me without waiting for an answer, turning toward the house. I made up the guest room for you, he said. Not your room. Not welcome home, just guest. Danielle peeked out from the kitchen. Her face was pale, eyes wide. She gave me a small, brittle smile and dried her hands on a dish towel. We're so glad you're here, Dot. She said it like someone who knew I was walking into something sharp. The place looked different. New rugs, new furniture, cold colors. The family pictures that used to line the hallway were gone, replaced with generic framed art, abstract things, void of memory. Michael guided me to the dining table, where lasagna steamed in the center, garlic bread on a plate like a bribe. Sit, he said, pulling out the chair for me. Dinner was strained. He asked me about the drive, my health, what I was doing with the condo. Every word had a thread behind it, a tug toward something I couldn't see yet. Then he poured the wine. Expensive red. My glass stayed full. Mom, he said, swirling his own glass, you've built up assets worth at least $800,000 between the house, the investments, the life insurance. Don't you think family comes first? His voice was light, like we were talking about dessert options. But his eyes were fixed on mine, calculating. Danielle froze, fork halfway to her mouth. Her eyes darted between us, terrified. I laughed, soft and dry. What exactly are you asking me, Michael? He didn't answer, just sipped his wine, held my gaze too long. That's when it started to click. The visit, the wine, the tight smile. He wasn't checking on me, he was checking me out, sizing up how much longer I'd last, wondering when my accounts would be free and clear. Back then, I still thought it was about money. I had no idea he already had a plan. After dinner, I settled into the guest room. The bedding was clean, crisp, and too new, like it had never been used before. No extra pillows, no framed photos, nothing of me in that room. I sat on the edge of the bed, kicked off my shoes, and stared at the ceiling. It was too quiet. Something was wrong. Not just uncomfortable, not just awkward, wrong. Michael had always been ambitious, but there was something else now. Coldness. An edge under his voice. He spoke to me like I was an obstacle, like I was already gone, and he was just waiting for the paperwork to catch up. I got up, turned on the bedside lamp, and reached for my purse. I took out my leather organizer, brown, worn, soft from years of handling. My fingers moved automatically. No hesitation. I'd packed it like muscle memory. Inside, a notarized copy of my will, my husband's original death certificate, the deed to the Spokane condo, still in my name, a recent printout of my investment account, a photocopy of the binder I kept in my safe, account numbers, POAs, beneficiaries. I flipped through each one, checking signatures, looking for anything out of place. Nothing was, and yet I kept flipping, because something in me had already started preparing for war. I remembered the look in Danielle's eyes. That wasn't discomfort. That was fear. I remembered how quickly Michael brought up my money, not in worry, not in support, but in strategy. I remembered how he pushed the wine, not the cheap stuff. The good stuff, the kind you don't waste unless you're trying to loosen lips. I wasn't crazy. Not yet. But I'd be damned if I let my guard down. Michael thought I was a tired old woman with a dwindling memory and a big balance sheet. Let him think that. The knock came not 5 minutes after I zipped up my organizer and placed it on the nightstand. Michael didn't wait for me to answer. He opened the door like he still had a right to. "You okay?" he asked, too casual. "You looked a little tense earlier." "I'm fine," I said. "Just tired." He leaned against the door frame, arms crossed. "I was thinking maybe we could go out for a bit, catch up. There's this new place down the street. Great music, good wine, nothing too loud. Thought we could talk." Talk? That word sat wrong. When Michael wanted to talk, it usually meant a request was coming, but his tone shifted, softer now. I know dinner was awkward. I probably came off pushy. I don't want money to come between us. Can we just go have a drink? Like old times? I wanted to say no, God, I wanted to. But I also knew, whatever this was, it was happening tonight. "All right," I said slowly. "Just one drink." He smiled, too fast, and turned before I could grab my coat. I slipped the organizer into my large handbag and brought it with me. Always bring your lifeboat when the water smells funny. The pub was one of those trendy gastropub places with reclaimed wood tables and dim Edison bulbs trying too hard to be nostalgic. We sat at the bar. I ordered a seltzer. Michael got a scotch. Top shelf. He talked about nothing. The kids, the market, politics. He laughed at things that weren't funny, overcorrected, asked too many times if I was having a good time. Something was wrong with his rhythm, like he was buying time. At one point, he looked at his phone and said, "Gotta take this." "Be right back." He disappeared out the side door toward the alley. That's when the bartender came over. Tall, late 50s. A veteran, if I had to guess. Not just by the army patch on his jacket, but the way his eyes saw everything. "You here with the guy in the blue jacket?" he asked, not quite looking at me. "I am." He wiped down the bar with one hand and slipped a phone toward me with the other, screen tilted up. Security footage. Time-stamped. Clear. Michael outside, handing an envelope to a man in a black windbreaker. 2 others nearby. They nodded, shook hands. Money. The bartender's voice was calm but final. "This is a setup," he said. "They're here for you." The bartender, Marvin, his name tag read, nodded toward the video. "It's not the first time I've seen something like this." I looked up, sharp. "What do you mean?" He leaned his forearms on the bar, lowering his voice. "I was Army, 15 years, then bar security another 20. People think they can hide things in plain sight. They forget about cameras, patterns, timing. He jerked his chin toward the alley door. You see how that guy with the white shoes doesn't talk? Just watches. That's a tailman, hired muscle, meant to make sure the job gets done clean. I didn't want to understand what he meant, but I did. Michael wasn't meeting someone. He was coordinating. He was timing. I forced myself to breathe. Why tell me? Marvin didn't flinch. Because I've seen too many women your age fall for that. Sweet son, routine while their name gets attached to things they never asked for. Because you didn't panic. And because when I asked if he was with you, your eyes didn't lie. His did. I clenched the strap of my purse. What do I do? He nodded once. There's a side exit through the kitchen. I'll walk you there. Don't go out the front. Your car's likely marked. My hands were steady now. Cold, but steady. My mission was clear. Survive tonight. Protect Danielle and the children. And stop Michael from turning my life's work into blood money. I didn't know how long I had before they noticed I was missing. Marvin led me through the narrow hallway behind the bar, past crates of bottled cider and a dishwashing station. He handed me a coat. Too big, camouflage print, probably from his own locker. Wear it out. Pull up the hood. Keep your face down. I nodded. My body felt like it was moving on old instincts, habits from raising a child alone in the fee, 80s, with no backup and no time to cry. You get sharp or you get broken. In the alley, the air hit me like a slap. Damp, cold. The stench of grease from the kitchen vent stuck to my skin. Marvin stopped just before the door opened. You've got maybe 5 minutes, tops. I've seen those guys before. Paid muscle. They don't ask questions. You disappear, they get paid less. He met my eyes. Don't go home. Don't go back to his place. You need a buffer. Somewhere safe to think. I nodded, heart thudding in my ears. Thank you, he shrugged. We don't let people get hunted in my bar. The door creaked open. I slipped out into the night, hood up, coat swallowing my shape. I didn't look back. Survive tonight. I didn't care if I had to sleep in my car or call an old friend at midnight. I wasn't dying in an alley because my son couldn't wait for a will to clear. Protect Danielle and the children. She'd known something. The way her eyes pleaded with me at dinner. The way she gripped the serving spoon like she was afraid to speak. If he could do this to me, she wasn't safe either. Stop Michael. He thought the money was already his. That I was just a signature on the last page. But I still had every document. Every copy. Every code and clause and date. He wanted to clean the books and bury the evidence. I was the evidence. The alley was slick with rain. I kept to the shadows, counting steps out of habit. 12 paces to the dumpster. 8 more to the corner. I didn't run. Running draws attention. I walked like I belonged, like I knew where I was going. But I didn't. Not yet. There was a bus stop at the end of the block. Closed for the night. I crouched behind a white van parked along the curb, the engine still ticking as it cooled. My breath fogged in the air. That's when I heard him. Michael, his voice, too loud and too familiar. She always parks behind her condo. Blue Toyota, same spot every night. He was close, maybe half a block. The sound bounced off the buildings, clear as a bell in the damp night. I froze, heart in my throat. He was describing my routine, my habits, things only someone who'd been watching for a long time would know. She keeps the key fob in her left coat pocket. She's had the same habit since I was a kid. My knees ached, crouched on concrete. But I didn't move. I didn't dare. I told you, Michael added, his voice harder now. In and out. Nothing messy. We can't afford messy. Every word was a nail in the coffin he was building for me. I stayed low, tucked behind the wheel well, as their voices drifted closer. They hadn't seen me. Not yet. But they were confident. Too confident. 200,000 now, Michael said. Another 500,000 after the inheritance clears. I didn't even flinch. I just listened. His voice wasn't anxious or hesitant like it had been earlier over dinner. It was smooth now. Cold. Like this was just a transaction. Like he was buying a goddamn dishwasher. You sure she's worth that much? One of the men asked. She's liquid. Stocks, bonds, insurance. Clean. I get access as soon as the paperwork finalizes. You just make it happen." My stomach turned, but my mind stayed sharp. I watched their feet. Black boots, scuffed soles, someone's white Nikes with a tear near the heel. I'd always been good at noticing the things people missed. Little inconsistencies. That was what bookkeeping had trained me to do. See what doesn't belong. The scariest thing wasn't that Michael was trying to have me killed. It was how easy it came to him. His tone didn't shake. His words didn't falter. The boy I once taught to ride a bike, the one who cried when his goldfish died, was gone. In his place stood a man calculating the value of my death. He had weighed my life against the mortgage, the tuition, the lake house fantasy he couldn't afford. And he had decided. I was in the way. I gripped my purse tighter. It was absurd, almost funny. The years I spent saving receipts, tracking interest rates, teaching him to balance a checkbook when he was 12, all so he could one day pay off hitmen with that same icy efficiency. "You said she drinks wine," one of them muttered. "You want it to look like a heart attack?" Michael paused. "I don't care what it looks like. Just don't make it public. I don't need an investigation." A long silence. Then, "We'll handle it." Their footsteps moved off. Not far, but enough for me to breathe again. I exhaled slowly and adjusted the strap of my bag. My wedding ring caught the streetlight. The same one my husband slipped on my hand 50 years ago. I turned it once, like a prayer. Or maybe a vow. He wanted me to die tonight, but I had other plans. By the time their voices disappeared into the night, I was already moving, low and quick between parked cars, keeping to the shadows. My knees barked in protest, but I didn't stop. I couldn't afford to. I found a side street and kept walking, 3 blocks, maybe 4, until I hit a main road. Only then did I call a cab. Not a rideshare, nothing that left a digital trail. The driver, a man in his 60s with tired eyes and a thermos full of black coffee, didn't ask questions when I gave him the address to Michael's house. "Drop me off a block before," I added. "I want to walk." He nodded. Smart woman. Not smart, just cornered. And very, very awake now. When we pulled to the curb, I handed him cash, thanked him, and watched him drive off before I turned the corner. My footsteps felt heavier now, not from fear, from purpose. Michael thought I'd be dead by midnight. Instead, I was walking back into his house. It was almost midnight, quiet, porch light still on, Danielle's car in the driveway, no movement in the living room. I knew the code to the side door. He never changed it after college. Still 1986, the year I bought him his first bicycle. The door gave without a sound. Inside, the house was still. I heard faint breathing upstairs, a child's cough, then Danielle's restless footsteps. She was still awake. Good. I moved quietly to the kitchen and took a sticky note from the drawer near the fridge. I wrote in block letters with the marker I kept in my purse. "Take the children. Go to your mother's. Trust me. Don't tell him." I folded it and tucked it into the cereal box, the one only she touched every morning, right next to the bottle of almond milk I bought last time I visited. Then I went upstairs, quiet, precise, like I had in the war zone that had been my marriage, the battlefield of raising a child alone. I packed my bag in under 5 minutes. Clothes, toothbrush, phone charger, organizer. When I left, I didn't look back. Not at the house, not at the porch, not at the door where my son had kissed my cheek 6 hours ago, before offering me up like a lamb to slaughter. I drove into the dark, lasagna still in my stomach, and betrayal riding shotgun. I found a motel about 30 minutes outside the city, the kind with flickering signs, peeling paint, and a clerk who didn't care about last names. I paid cash and asked for a room that didn't face the street. Room 117, non-smoking. Deadbolt stuck a little, but it held when I kicked it. I locked the door, shoved a chair under the knob, and sat down hard on the edge of the bed. Then I unzipped my leather organizer. Everything was still there, intact, untouched. The will, the trust, the secondary POA that named Danielle as emergency contact, not Michael. Copies of the life insurance paperwork, The one Michael didn't know I'd updated after Harold died. My bank statements, investment summaries, the last 5 years of gift transfers and annual exclusion amounts, all marked and organized with color-coded tabs. I'd spent decades tracking pennies. Now, those receipts might just save my life. I started laying them out across the bedspread, side by side, each one a piece of a puzzle Michael thought he could destroy. And that's when I saw it, a pattern I hadn't noticed before. 3 years ago, I changed my will. Michael had been the witness. He was so helpful then, so proud of me for getting my affairs in order. He even drove me to the notary's office and took me to lunch afterward. I'd been touched. What a fool I was. Because that will, the one in my organizer, clearly listed him as the primary beneficiary. Everything would pass directly to him uncontested. It was supposed to be temporary, while I worked on setting up the grandchildren's trust. But I'd never finished it. I got busy. Harold died. Then COVID hit. Time slipped by. And Michael? He never once reminded me. Of course not. He already had what he wanted. The air in that motel room went still. I stared at the document in front of me like it was a bomb. Because it was. A slow one. One I built myself. I was looking at a will that gave him everything. The condo. The investment accounts. The cash savings. The stocks Harold and I had carefully grown since the late 80s. There it was. Section 4B. I, Dorothy Harper, leave all remaining personal and financial assets to my son, Michael Harper, to be distributed without contest. No mention of Danielle. No mention of the grandchildren. No mention of a trust. Just him. I folded the will back into the organizer slowly, like it might cut me if I wasn't careful. And then I cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears, hot and steady, tracking down my face as I stared at the ugly yellow light overhead. Harold, I whispered. My husband's name felt foreign in my mouth now. What did we raise? I had been so proud of Michael, my only child, my miracle baby. I remembered sitting in that rocking chair at 2 a.m, feeding him formula while the radio played, promising him I would never let the world touch him the way it had touched me. Now here he was. Not just letting the world touch me, but selling tickets to watch me fall. I clutched the old leather strap of my organizer like it could anchor me. The sadness was heavy, but the rage was beginning to stir, and rage was something I knew how to use. By 7 a.m., I was dressed, packed, and out of the motel before the sun finished rising. The organizer was in my purse. The photo of Harold and Michael, now folded in half, stayed tucked behind my ID, face down. There were no more second chances, no more illusions, only the facts. At a small cafe off Fifth, I found a quiet table near the window and pulled out my phone. The battery was nearly dead, but it had enough charge for one email. 2. Ms. Green, estate attorney, subject urgent. Need to update will. I need to make changes, in person, today. She responded less than an hour later. Of course, Dorothy. Come at 2 p.m. I'll clear my schedule. I stared at the screen for a long time before I typed the next message. This one was harder. 2. Danielle. It's me. I'm safe. I left something for you in the cereal box. If you read it and still want to talk, come to Green and Wells at 2 p.m. Don't tell Michael. Not a word. I hit send. Then I powered off the phone completely and tucked it deep into my purse, under the folder that now held something more dangerous than a weapon. Proof. Photos. Statements. Receipts. The original will. The timeline of everything he'd done, from the wine to the alley. I knew the law wouldn't move, just because my heart was broken. But it would move for this. At 1:55, I stepped into Ms. Green's office. Same oak table. Same soft lamps. She greeted me with the calm professionalism I'd always admired in her. That quiet sense of, you're not crazy, and we'll prove it. Danielle may join us, I said as I sat down. She hasn't confirmed, but I think she will. Ms. Green nodded. If she does, we'll talk openly. If not, we proceed anyway. At 2:08 p.m., the front door opened. Danielle entered like a shadow. Pale, small, clutching her purse like it held her spine together. But she met my eyes. Not scared, not shocked, resolved. She sat down across from me and didn't say a word. Her hands trembled. Her mouth was tight. But she was here. That was enough. I took a deep breath, opened the folder, and laid the evidence on the table. "I'm not here to ask for help," I said. "I'm here to end this. But if you want to protect your children, and yourself, I need you to tell me the truth." Danielle didn't blink. Her eyes welled, but she didn't cry. She nodded, and the war officially began. Danielle sat rigid in the leather chair across from me. Her hands were folded tightly in her lap, knuckles white, like she was keeping something from spilling out. Ms. Green watched her, silent but sharp, the way a good lawyer does when something important is about to unfold. I opened the folder and started laying it out, one page at a time, each placed deliberately in front of Danielle, then slid slightly toward Ms. Green. The screenshot from the pub camera, Michael in the alley, handing off an envelope, my will, the one he had witnessed 3 years ago, account summaries, investment documents, a copy of the life insurance policy, with his name listed as sole beneficiary. Danielle stared at each piece like it was a live wire. She didn't touch them. But she didn't look away. When I reached the note I had tucked into the cereal box, the copy I had made for myself, I paused. "I knew you were scared," I said. "That night, over dinner, when he brought up the money, the way you looked at me," I shook my head slowly. "You knew what he was capable of, didn't you?" Danielle closed her eyes, just for a moment, then opened them. "Yes," she whispered. "But I didn't know it had gotten this far. I thought he was just talking. Angry. Desperate." Ms. Green leaned forward. "Mrs. Harper, do you have any reason to believe your husband was planning to harm your mother-in-law?" Danielle looked straight at her, then straight at me. "Yes," she said. "He didn't say it outright, but he kept bringing up how unpredictable your health was, how it wouldn't take much for you to slip away quietly." Her voice cracked on the last words. She wasn't putting on a show. This wasn't for pity. It was guilt. "I tried to tell him it was wrong," she added. "I told him we could figure things out, downsize, sell the second car, anything. He just changed. He's not the man I married anymore." I nodded, because I knew that feeling. Danielle took a breath. "I want to help. I want to protect the kids. Just tell me what to do." "He doesn't know we're here?" Ms. Green asked. I shook my head. "I haven't spoken to him since I left the pub. As far as he knows, I ran scared." Danielle looked down at her lap. "He asked if I'd seen you. I said no. He believed me." "Good," Ms. Green said. "We don't alert him yet. We build everything airtight. We do this the right way." She pulled a fresh legal pad from her drawer, clicked her pen once, and began writing. "We'll start by drafting a formal affidavit of Danielle's statement and attaching the photographic evidence. I'll contact a colleague of mine in the district attorney's office, discreetly. She handles elder abuse and estate fraud cases." She looked at both of us with calm authority. "This is criminal conspiracy, potentially attempted murder, but we do not make contact with law enforcement until everything is filed, sealed, and protected. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., I'll walk this into the DA's office myself." Danielle looked over at me, voice small. "What happens then?" I answered, before Ms. Green could. "He'll be arrested." Danielle nodded once. No tears, just quiet resolve. Her hands were still shaking, but she wasn't running anymore. Ms. Green tapped the table gently. "After he's taken into custody, we'll file an emergency restraining order for both of you. Then we begin the process of formally amending your estate, with new protections and trustees." She paused, looking directly at me. "We can put the assets into a generational trust for the grandchildren. Make sure he never touches a dime." My throat tightened. "That's exactly what I want." "Good." Ms. Green stood, collecting the folder. "Then we're done for today. You'll both go home. Say nothing. No phone calls. No strange behavior. Let him think everything is fine." Danielle and I stood together. I touched her arm before we left. "You saved my life," I said. "No," she whispered. "You saved mine." By 9 o'clock the next morning, Ms. Green was already at the courthouse. She texted only once. Everything filed. DA's office is reviewing. Arrest warrant will be issued by noon. I didn't respond. I just stared out the motel window, watching a crow pick at an old sandwich in the parking lot. Even the sky looked gray, like it knew something was coming. Danielle was staying at her mother's now, just outside Bellevue. We agreed to keep communication minimal until it was over. Too risky, too many eyes on her. At 11:43 a.m. the call came. Unknown number. I picked up. This is Officer Branner with the Seattle Police Department. Is this Dorothy Harper? Yes. I'm calling to inform you that Michael Harper has been taken into custody. He was arrested at his home without incident. We're initiating formal charges of conspiracy to commit murder, attempted insurance fraud, and financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. You'll be contacted shortly by the district attorney. I didn't breathe for a full 5 seconds, not out of fear, out of relief. Thank you, I whispered. The line went dead. I turned off the phone, folded my hands in my lap, and let the silence settle in. The kind of silence you only get after a hurricane. The wreckage is still fresh, but at least the wind has stopped howling. By afternoon, it was already spreading. Word spread faster than wildfire in a dry field. I heard he tried to kill her for the money. He what? No, that can't be true. Danielle looked like a ghost at the grocery store. My God, and the kids? Did they see it happen? The facts didn't matter. What mattered was this: the story had broken. And for once, I didn't have to say a damn word. Danielle's mother took her in, without hesitation. A tiny house with yellow siding and a front porch that smelled like coffee and old wood. The boys had bunk beds again. Danielle slept in the guest room. I visited only when asked. Quietly, respectfully. The children didn't know the full story. Not yet. But they'd stopped asking about their father. Danielle told me that one night, her youngest asked, "When's Daddy coming home?" She said she just stared at the ceiling and whispered, "Not for a while, honey." No more lies. Not from her. Not from me. Michael's mugshot made the local news that evening. Late night segment. Bottom of the hour. They used his LinkedIn photo, cropped awkwardly. Local man arrested in estate fraud and conspiracy investigation, people noticed. Friends, church acquaintances, parents from the boys, school. I got a voicemail from Nancy Bradford, the woman who used to bring deviled eggs to every church potluck. "Dorothy, I don't know what to say. I hope you're all right. We're all praying for you." There were no flowers, no casseroles, no pity, just space. And for the first time in weeks, I welcomed it. Because shame had never belonged to me. Let them whisper, let them speculate. I didn't care. He had tried to kill me. And now he sat in a cold cell, while I drank warm tea in a borrowed kitchen with 2 boys giggling in the next room. There's justice in that. Poetic even. Michael's arraignment was held 2 weeks later. I didn't attend, not because I was afraid, because I didn't need to see it with my own eyes. The evidence had already spoken. Danielle sat beside Ms. Green on the courtroom bench, a bundle of papers in her lap. Timelines, transcripts, screenshots, the signed affidavit. Her hands shook when she took the stand, but her voice didn't. She told the truth, how he'd made comments about easier ways to handle finances, how he'd researched medications that could mimic cardiac arrest, how he'd called me deadweight during a fight she had recorded. The audio, now Exhibit C. The footage from the pub was introduced by the bartender, Marvin, who showed up in a clean black blazer and told the court she didn't panic. That's how I knew she was telling the truth. My organizer, with my original will, life insurance policies, account statements, was Exhibit A. The judge looked at each document with a grim face. Michael's public defender tried to paint him as, quote, overwhelmed, financially desperate, mentally unstable. He mentioned a potential gambling issue, but the DA wasn't moved. Mr. Harper wasn't confused, she said. He was calculated. He used proximity, trust, and outdated estate documents to construct a clean exit. Had it not been interrupted, we would be here today discussing a death certificate, not a criminal indictment. The courtroom was silent. The judge nodded slowly. Given the evidence of premeditation, witness corroboration, and financial motive, he said, "This court finds sufficient cause to proceed to trial. Bail is denied. Michael didn't look up. I saw the footage online later. Him being let out in cuffs, shoulders hunched, face pale, mouth tight, like he was the victim. That same manipulative smirk he used as a teenager when he got caught lying about grades. Except this time, there would be no grounding, no second chance. Just charges: conspiracy to commit murder, attempted insurance fraud, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult witness, tampering, preemptive estate manipulation. They hit him with everything. Danielle filed for divorce the next day, and I signed a new will with Ms. Green as witness. No family involved. My assets now sat safely in a generational trust, locked until my grandchildren turned 25, with Danielle as custodian and oversight protections in place. He would never touch a dime. The house in Spokane was being cleaned. I hadn't decided if I'd go back, but I knew one thing for sure. Michael Harper was no longer my problem. He was the state's.